Would you like to win and achieve success at what you do? Welcome to the Winner's Ways podcast, where we create winners every day. And now, your host, the author of Winner's Ways book and life coach, Bola Alabi.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Winner's Ways podcast. This is where we help you to achieve success, whether you talk about your career or your financial life and your life generally, because we want you to succeed. And because of that, I always try to bring experts to the show so that they can share their knowledge with us. And we are so grateful. I'm blessed to have Tony Bradshaw with us today. Tony is on a mission to build future millionaires. He has this book, The Millionaire's Choice, that he released. So we are going to be asking Tony about all these questions. Without keeping you guys waiting any further, let me bring in my guest. Hey, Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to having a good conversation today about money and what we can do to make better decisions with our money.
It's awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today. So if you don't mind, Tony, can you introduce yourself to my audience so that we can know you and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background, I come from a lower income family. My dad still lives in the same house I grew up in. I think he paid about $11,000 for the house back in 1971. So I moved into that house when I was about a year old, and he still lives there today. So 50 years later, still in the same house. But we grew up in a low income family, didn't make a lot of money. Didn't manage what we had very well. So we had power cut off, electricity get cut off periodically, lots of bounce checks, lots of bounce check fees. That was kind of the life I grew up in, and really didn't know any better. You know, as a kid, kids are very resilient. And so we just kind of learned to exist and survive in whatever environment that we live in, not knowing any different, right? So small wonder I grew up. My parents helped me go off to college. They did really sacrificed a lot for me. So even though we didn't have a lot, what we did have, my mom and dad poured out to us, my sister and I, in the best way that they could, because they didn't have that growing up. So they wanted to they kind of overcompensated for us as the best of their abilities. And so my dad dropped out of school when he was about in 10th grade, had to support himself. My mom had a little bit of college, but never got a degree. And then she did a little bit of management, convenience store management, you know, sharing some of her stories. You know, she worked really, really hard, sometimes 100 hours a week, because of the job that she had. So very, very stressful. She was working as a convenience store manager. And at one point, that was the most dangerous job in Nashville. And she was robbed by gunpoint about 6 different times. I remember at one point her coming home visibly shaken. You know, can you imagine being robbed by gunpoint in a convenience store 6 different times? But and she just suck it up, go back right back into the job. But this one time, it really got to her, and a gentleman came in late at night, stuck a gun on her nose, 357 Magnum, very large caliber handgun, and put it on the tip of her nose. And you know, and put that kind of pressure on her. And that really rattled her. Yeah, really rattled her. But lots of shootings back then. So my mom sacrificed a lot for me and showed me the spirit of hard work, but they didn't know how to manage money. And so as I grew up, I didn't know how to manage money. And that when I was 25, I got my first W-2 out of college, made $39,000, and realized I had spent it all, and also gone in debt by $16,000. And so I was like, wow, that's not a good decision. That's not a good direction. Let me make a shift here. I've got to make some changes. So that's when I started studying money and learning how it worked, at least on a basic level. And from there, after making that decision of like, hey, I need to change, I need to make some changes. And I learned how to do investing. I learned how to get rid of my debt, pay off my debt. And then put a plan together, which I call a millionaire plan. And that was my plan to be a millionaire by age 40. And so it took me about 15 years to get there. which is pretty typical. And so got a degree as an engineer and got into the business world for a little bit. And now I've got a podcast and a book based on the Millionaire Choice principles, which, I'm helping people do what I did at 25, which is make a millionaire choice, a choice to be different, and then create a plan around that. Like, how do you actually build wealth? That's what I'm trying to help people do these days.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you very much, Tony, for the intro. So growing up, you spoke about, your background, coming from a humble family. What is it about your childhood that really helped you to, make that shift and say, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire? What is it about your experience in your childhood that trigger or flip that switch for you?
Yeah, what helped me a lot, and I wouldn't say that it was my childhood or my upbringing that helped me make the shift. Everybody's got to make their shift in their own way. I think some people have to go through a lot of pain to make a mental shift, to go, hey, this really hurts. I don't want to live like this anymore. Let me make a shift. Some of that comes from pain. For mine, I wasn't really that much in pain. I just felt like there could be a better way. So for me, it was more of a positive mindset to go, hey, I'm going to move forward. And I was very much wired to be a problem solver and how I could do better. I like to say, be better tomorrow than you are today. Absolutely. So for me, today was, I spent all my money. I'm broke. I'm living with my parents in a studio bedroom apartment. I don't have a lot of assets. I've got $500 in my bank. So that was what I call my financial reality. And so I had to take a really hard look at my financial reality of that day and go, this is where I'm at. Is this where I want to be next year? And the answer was no. I don't want to be in the same situation next year that I'm in this year. So then what do I have to do to change and make that happen? And for me, as a problem solver, the way I'm wired, and this is what I've learned from coaching people, is you have to develop a mindset shift. You have to shift your mindset. There's definitely a before and there's an after. Everybody I talk to that builds wealth, there's a before and there's an after. There's the broke where they were at before, and there's a shift, and then there's an after. And they're very different people in their decision making and in their direction. The other thing that has to happen there is you have to develop a vision. Like, where am I going to be? Most people don't have the capability to create a vision for their future. That's why they repeat the same cycles over and over and over and over. That's what I was trapped in for 25 years. I make my money. I earn it. I spend it. I make more. I spend it. I make more. I spend it. My dad, my mom, same situation. Work, earn, spend, work, earn, spend. And there's never anything left, right? So you have to break out of that cycle. And one of those key components is developing a vision for a different future. Now, what I find in my situation is if you don't have the capacity to build a vision for your future, you can borrow someone else's vision for your future. And that's why I like to say, like Dave Ramsey, for example, he's one of the best financial teachers out there, regardless of whether you agree with his teaching or not.
Also a fan here. I'm a fan of Dave.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Well, Dave, yeah. And so Dave is giving people a vision to become debt free. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they can grab a hold of. So they're drowning in debt. They're drowning in finances. They go, I need hope. Throw me a lifeline. Throw me something. And Dave throws them a vision, says, hey, I can be debt free. I've taught all these other millions of people to be debt free. You can be debt free. So when people go into that and they go, I don't have a vision for my future. What's my vision? They go, oh, Dave Ramsey tells me I can be debt free. So they grab a hold of Dave's vision and they work on that debt-free vision. Okay. Now for me, I'm trying to get people to grab hold of a much more difficult vision. If you're broke and you're drowning in debt and you can't pay your bills, the idea of becoming a millionaire is like, that's hard. Like, that's hard to grab a hold of a vision like that. It's more difficult. So it's much easier to go, hey, I don't know if I can be a millionaire, but I know I can be debt free. Dave tells me I can be debt free. So that's a vision. And then you've got other guys like Robert Kiyosaki is a big one. He's a wealth-minded visionary as well. And he goes, hey, you can develop passive income. That's his vision for people's future. Develop passive income, buy assets that appreciate. But that's a big component. Now, my parents, on the other hand, you asked about growing up. When I wrote my book, The Millionaire Choice, what's interesting about my book that's different from I think a lot of other personal finance books is it doesn't really start out with money. It starts out with character. And so, my parents didn't teach me about money, but they did teach me good character traits. Mm-hmm. They taught me, and the 5 I cover is integrity. Integrity is number 1. So, be truthful, be integrity, hold yourself. What you say you're going to do to the best of your ability, like follow through. Focus, work ethic, self-discipline, and I'm the other ones elude me right now. But you get the concept. The work ethic. My mom had an incredible work ethic. My dad had an incredible work ethic, and that's a component of success. So the things I've outlined there: integrity, self-discipline, work ethic, focus. The 5th one I'm skipping, but those are foundational. What I call foundational elements to success, or foundational elements to wealth. You can't build or keep wealth without strong character. And that's why that's so important. The world is, there's so many people that built wealth or had wealth. NFL players, sports players are great examples of that. I think it's like, 60% of NFL players are broke within 3 years of leaving the NFL. So they make all these millions of dollars, all this money, more money than they've ever seen, but they missed a couple of things along the way. Some of that's character. Right. The second element, millionaire key number 2, which we can talk about a little bit more, is called maximize your time. And so everybody's got the same amount of time. You may not grow up in the same situation, in life, or not start from the same starting point. But why I believe anyone can become a millionaire is because I've seen it happen. I've seen people that came from nothing, less than nothing, and became millionaires. And one of the key factors is what they did with their time. Mm-hmm. They understood the value of their time and what they did with it. And that's a big difference between somebody who builds wealth and someone who goes through their entire life on that work spend cycle and never change. So those are kind of the big cornerstones. I think I like to call them foundation items, because those are the things that have to come first before you can even dream of starting to build wealth. You have to start with those kind of core foundation items. And then once you get your foundation down, you can start building on top of that, just like you would a house, right?
That's so good, Tony. A lot of information that you've shared right there. I particularly like what you said about vision. If you don't have a vision for the future that you want, maybe you can borrow from someone else, right? And I think you are completely right. Most of us, I did as well. I followed Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps. That's a vision that Dave sold to millions of people out there that are getting out of debt. Now, I want to hear about the Millionaire plan. Is it the same as the success plan that you just highlighted, talking about character and plan and time? Or what are these millionaires' plan? Is it a step-by-step approach, or what does it entail?
Yeah. So when I got into writing my book and like what I had to offer, because there's so many people out there teaching personal finance or investing or wealth or something like that, I really had to ask myself, what's going to be different about what I teach versus what somebody else may teach? And there's a lot of overlap, right? So that there's a lot of ways to build wealth. Some people just pick one and go with it. Like maybe they do real estate, or, and some other people, they push mutual funds, and that's their angle. What I like to believe is that there are dozens of ways to become a millionaire and dozens of ways to build wealth, because I've interviewed almost 100 millionaires now, and they do it different ways. They invest in different things. There are some core components that are usually always the same. The first one that we've already talked about, you've got the character, like develop strong character. That's millionaire key number 1. Millionaire key number 2 is maximize your time. We talked about. Mm-hmm. Millionaire key number 3 is one that's very, very important. It's where I started at 25. I didn't know anything about money, so I had to go learn about money. I call that getting money smart. I had to get money smart because you have to learn. So like, for example, you go to school, right, for 12 years. Kindergarten, you count 13. If you go off to college, you add 4. You get a master's degree, you add 2. You get a doctorate, you add 2. So you go to school for a large part of your lifetime, and you're building kind of your foundation, your knowledge base. And there you're learning about math, English, and science, right? Right. But where in your life do you take time to learn about money, which is obviously one of the most important components of your life. Your entire life, you're going to be earning. So when you think about what you had to do for your education from grades K through 12, you should really think about studying money the same way. You should go, I need to learn about money, and I need to spend 10, 12, 20, 30, 40 years developing a habit of learning something new about money all the time. How does it work? And that's very critical because there are so many financial teachers out there. But, I've been learning about money for 25 years, and I'm still learning about money and how it works. You can always improve on that. So that's a very core component. That's millionaire key number 3, get money smart. Millionaire key number 4, which I didn't do on my journey until later. But if I could go back and rewind the clock and go, what would I do differently? This would be one of those. And that's find a money mentor. I'm a DIY guy, so I figured out myself. I went and bought books. I learned what the books told me, and I went and executed my vision and strategy based on what I learned through those books. If I could rewind the clock, what I would do is I would have found a community of wealth-minded people, and I would have plugged into that. And you're going to grow a lot faster in a relationship with people who know how to manage money than you would reading a dozen books. So by connecting with other people, you can accelerate your wealth strategies or your wealth growth or your ability to manage money much, much faster in a community group of people who are, like I like to say it, going in the same direction you are. If you put a group of future millionaires together, they're going to accomplish a much greater task than if you were trying to figure it out on your own. And you're going to make fewer mistakes because, I made mistakes along the way. We could talk about those, but you're going to make fewer mistakes if you work in a group and work along with other people. So those are other keys that go into there. After that, you get into, like I said, get money smart. You have to learn about making a budget. So I call that watching your money. No one cares more about your money than you do. So if you're not going to take time to care about it, then why is anyone else going to do that? So you have to learn that strategy. So, do a budget. I call it a spending plan. Budgets are kind of bad mojo because, the hair on the back of your neck rises up. At least my wife, so talking about budget, she's just kind of scared of the budget. So she gets real nervous.
I do understand.
And so I call it a spending plan. It's a lot more fun to figure out where to put your money to build wealth or to go have fun with it or whatever. And so just, spend it in the right places, put it into the right places. I like to say avoid debt. Get out of debt and avoid debt. Those are two topics. And what I mean by that is consumer debt. Consumer debt would be, hey, I need to go buy a TV today. Right. Well, you got to understand the time value of money. If you spend $1,000 on a TV today and you're, let's say, 30 years old, that's actually more like, 65 minus 35. Let's go 30. Yeah, 35 is good. So 6 cycles, about 6 cycles. Right. So that's really a 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, like 60. That's like a $64,000 TV in future money. And that's what the time value of money is. So when you think about spending money today, you're thinking, hey, it's $1,000. It's going to cost me $1,000. The first thing out of your mind is, I can afford that. Right. That's your first thing that you think of. But what you don't understand is if you had invested that money in a good investment, that would be worth $64,000, right around your retirement age. And so if you can shift your mind to think invest first versus spend first, that's really what wealthy people do. They think about the cost of the money they're spending and what it really means in the future. And that's a big mindset shift for people. You have to do that. So you asked me about the Millionaire Plan. It's a pretty simple concept. So once you go through and learn these principles I'm talking about right now, the avoiding debt, the managing your money, watching your budget, and then learning some principles of investing, the only really thing you have left is your income, right? So a lot of people get stuck. I call it income stagnant. And so that means if you're making 35 grand, like when I was out of college, I made 39 grand. Right. My mom at that time was making 35 grand. So I'm 25 years old, making $4,000 more. I thought I was like the king of the hill, man. I'm like, man, I just got to the party. I'm 25 years old. My mom's 45. I'm making $4,000 or $5,000 more a year than she is. Like, I got this game beat, man. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize until later, because I came from a low income family, I didn't know what $100,000 income looked like. I didn't know I could make $100,000 a year. I was at 39 and thought I was king of the hill. I didn't know what 250. I did not know that I could make 250 grand a year. I did not know I could make 500 grand a year. I didn't understand the fact that you can make as much money as you want to make. You just have to use your time right and invest in yourself in the proper way to create that income. And I did not understand that as a 25-year-old just starting out on my journey, and some people don't learn that in their entire lifetimes. But, most people I talk to, it really comes down to you got to invest in yourself in the right way. And I've got some friends, man, they spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development every year just to make themselves better. And they've been doing that for a number of years. So, I mean, I have never done that. I've never spent $200,000 on my personal development. Now, I've spent maybe $10,000 or $20,000 in a year on my personal development. But to think about spending $200,000, like that's just a number that's just beyond even my comprehension today. Yeah. I'm not playing it. I'm not playing at that level now, right? But I'm starting to hang out with those people that play at that level. And that's, if you want to go where other people have been, you got to figure out how to get around those people, right? So they say you're an average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. That could be your job, your income, your lifestyle. And so one of the things I did very early, I don't think I was really conscious of this, but I can remember specific moments in time where I made conscious decisions not to be around certain people. So like, for example, I grew up in a pretty drug infested neighborhood. It wasn't like drugs were everywhere, but there were drug dealers across the street. My sister and I would look out the window late at night. I was 12, she was 6, watching them deal cocaine on the hood of the car across the street. There was drug dealers up the street. They got in a shootout one night. One of them got killed. Ambulances, police cars, all the stuff on the street. I did have a bullet hole in my front window of my house. One day we were cleaning out the room, and we never used that room in the house. So it's just a junk room. And so I'm cleaning it one day and I'm like, oh, there's a bullet hole in the front window. Pretty large caliber too.
That's scary.
And I'm like, yeah. And then I look in the, it goes, you could see where it went through the window. It's like, oh, that's where it hit the wall. That's where it popped out in the kitchen. But we never found it. We never found it inside the kitchen, but it went through a wall, window and a wall. And that's how I grew up. So it was very conscious for me to go, hey, I don't know if this was spiritual guidance or what, but I'm like, these are not the people who are going where I want to go. Yeah. These are not the people. And I made that decision pretty early at a young age. I didn't really understand the decision I was making, but I do think that played a big role in what I was able to achieve later. Because if you're hanging out with people that are where you are at that moment, they're probably not going to be the people that help change your life or move you forward. So you're going to have to make some decisions about going, hey, I got to leave some people behind because they're not on the same path that I want to be on. If they're not moving in a direction of success or moving in a direction of wealth, and it's a hard decision to make because some of those people are your good friends, some of those are your family members. And it doesn't mean you have to like totally let the relationships go, but you have to let some of those go and get into a new group. And I'm rambling a little bit, but let me finish this up. So millionaire key number 10 is creating your millionaire plan. And the reason I tried to make it, after you learn about finance, you learn about investing, you learn about budgeting, you really have to, I wanted to pull it back in and go, okay, let me put the nice bow on this package for you. As I've talked to you about all these principles, all this stuff, it's a little bit overwhelming. Let me put it back into plan. And this is what I did when I was 25. I sat down with the spreadsheet and I said, how much money do I make? This is my income, right? So that's my income plan. So over my lifetime, my income is going to go up. I don't know exactly how much. Now I'm older. I can understand that metric better. I know how to influence that metric. Back when I was 25, I made 39 grand and my plan was to be a millionaire, probably on less than $50,000 a year. Now that was 25 years ago. You got to change your plans a little bit. But that was an income plan. So on your millionaire plan, there's an income line, and it's a 20-year income line. And you need to understand how much your income is going to go up over 20 years, and you need to have a plan around that. I call that boost your income. You need to know how to boost your income, and then you need to plan accordingly to boost that income over time. The next line item is your debt. That's your debt plan. So you have an income plan, you have a debt plan, and that's how are you going to get out of debt? At the time, I had 16 grand in debt. I got out of debt within, I think it was 12 to 18 months. Okay. So I went after my debt and I'm like, I'm going to have this debt paid off. It's going to be done about this time frame. And I did. I paid it off in 18 months. And fortunately I did, because then my fiance, I found a fiance on that trip. and guess what? She had $20,000 in debt.
Oh, higher than you.
So I was out of debt, but then all of a sudden she brought me 20 grand in debt. So I'm like, oh, I need to start paying. And I started paying on that during the engagement period. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get married to this girl. I'm going to start rolling on her debt too.
You need to get
I'm going after it, right? People told me, said, you shouldn't do that. I don't think you should do that, because what if you break off the engagement and you're like, you know what? This girl ain't got much money and I do. I'll call it a bonus and bless her. She's just going to be blessed. Exactly. And so I did that for a few months. So that's your debt plan. It usually takes people from most people, unless they've dug a really deep hole, about 2 years to get out of consumer debt. And what I mean by that, that's car debt, credit card debt, stuff like that. So what they built up, you can usually get out of it once you repurpose your budget and figure out how to put your money in the right places and stop overspending in about 2 years. That doesn't include your house. That's a different tactic. Okay. So that's your income plan and your debt plan. The next part of that is your investing plan. So how are you going to, and I call that multiplying your money. How are you going to multiply your money over the next 10 to 20 years to build that wealth? And you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to get going in the right direction. And what I mean by that is, like, at 25, I didn't know a lot about money. I just knew enough to get moving in the right direction. And I'm a big proponent of that, is you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to get moving in the right direction. If you're spending all your money and you're going into debt, that's the wrong direction. So just redirect your future and start going on a path. And so, and on that spreadsheet, those 3 line items are what, once I total those up, I'm going, how's my income look? How's my debt look? How's my investments look? My investments may change over time. I'm going to learn a little bit over 20 years, right? I didn't know about real estate investing at 25. I didn't know much about it. I knew a little bit, but not much. But I did know about stocks and I did know about mutual funds. So that's what I invested in to get started. And then I paid off my debt. So in about 18 months to 24 months, I went from 16 grand in debt to being debt free and having $18,000 in the bank, or in the mutual funds and stocks. That's a big turnaround, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then, and so that's the millionaire plan. And it's pretty simple, man. And that's what I tell people is, money's not that complicated. It's really not that complicated. It's a pretty simple math problem. You just need to know the simple math and then know the principles. And what I love about becoming a millionaire is so many people have done it. It's a repeatable process.
Oh, wow.
And for you guys listening to the show, that's probably the single most important thing. That's why I say anyone can become a millionaire, because, over 10 million American households, this is America now. Okay. We're talking America. Over 10 million households in America are millionaire households. That's over 10%. It's about 12%. That's a huge number. 40% of 40% of the millionaires in the world live in the United States.
Wow.
And I could tell you story after story after story about that.
Okay. So, guys, I can tell you from this conversation with Tony, he's passionate. He knows what he's doing. He's been in the financial industry for over 15 years. You guys will learn a lot from him. As we are rounding that up, because I always like to keep it short and sweet. Tony, where can my audience find you? I know you have a coaching program. So if you want to quickly talk about that, maybe in 1 or 2 minutes, your website, your book, please go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. And so I have two places you can find me. One is the millionairechoice.com. That's the millionairechoice.com. I've got a lot of free resources on the site there. The 10 keys you heard me talking about, they're listed on there. Download those, check them out. There's also a couple free ebooks. You can get my book for free on the ebook on the website as well. I set aside 1 hour a day for financial coaching or life. I call it life and finance coaching, life and money mentoring. And the reason I do that is because I believe with just 1 hour of interaction with someone, I can change the trajectory of their life. And, I wish everybody would be able to do that, where they can say, hey, this moment in time with Tony Bradshaw, this 1 hour I spent changed the trajectory of my life forever. That's my goal of giving it that 1 hour away free every single day. You mentioned my coaching program. I do financial coaching as well, but there's no obligation on that free call to go into the coaching program. But if somebody wants that or is interested in it, yes, I do that as well. That's the primary site. If you want to follow me on my general stuff that I do, TonyBradshaw.com is the other one that you can follow me on. And there's a lot of overlap between those two websites.
All right. There you have it, guys. Hey, Tony, thank you very much for coming on the show today. We've enjoyed you, having you here. I've learned a lot from you. I like that Millionaire plan. I'm going to check out your website to download your ebook and follow you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
This episode of Winners Ways podcast has come to a close. We hope you enjoy and learn something from today's show. We want you to win and excel in all areas of your life, and we regularly explore and share information with our listeners to empower them to win. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more tips and strategies to help you find the success that you've always dreamt of. And don't forget to rate and review so that we can continue to bring you more podcast episodes to empower you. We will love to have you again next week. Now, keep winning.